Hello, and welcome in, everybody. We got the post-game show for One Piece, Chapter 1153. So, in case this is your first time tuning into one of these videos, how this works is that I like to go through the comment section of the full spoiler video to see what everybody's talking about. What are the theories? What are the opinions? What are the takeaways even? We're here to find out. So that being said, let's just get this started and get right into it with the first comment. Let's see, what do they say here? So technically the first comment is me, in regards to Loki. What do you guys think he is? I said Jormungandr, Karmic Serpent, Florida Snake Man. Honestly, I meant to put Florian Triangle Monster, but Florida Snake Man just sounds a lot cooler. Nidhogg, Demon Eye McGee. What do you think Loki actually is, and where do his eyes stem from? I got a couple of replies, not a lot, but I got a couple. This one just says, Nidhogg, please respond. I think the please respond is pretty funny. So when it comes to Nidhogg, right? When it comes to Nidhogg, Jormungandr, and Fenrir, I like those monsters. I played God of War. I've read one or two Norse mythology books out there, brother. I like those monsters. But for me at least, I am currently hung up at the fact that Oda introduced those monsters here in Elbaph already. Killingham, because of his nightmare ability, has brought to life Nidhogg, Fenrir, and Jormungandr. Of course, those are kid versions of those monsters because it's based off of what the kids imagine, but he still brought them in. I would not mind it if Oda took those monsters and made them 10 times more badass, and that is Loki's ability, but it still feels off for me right now. Like, I don't think it's bad, I would enjoy it, but just because we've already seen them here in Elbaph, I just can't imagine Oda would reuse them. Oda is, what's the right way to put it? Oda is very creative in One Piece, right? Oda can introduce so many things. He doesn't have to reference Norse mythology. Hell, he could bring in something new, something only in verse. So that is why I do lean towards this right here. The Karmic Serpent, the Hellfire Serpent from the mural in Elbaph. The serpent that we see on the right side. The serpent that is from the first world. That is where I'm at right now. I could be wrong. We only have literally 1 or 2 panels of Loki in this chapter, but that's where I'm at. Opinions could change next week, but yeah. Forest God, remember, the Sea Kings from Fishman Island, or the Rain God. P.S. Emu, maybe the sea god that turned into the sea devil. Yeah. See, this is all inverse things right here. Forest god, rain god, sea god. With all of this, we have little to no context about these guys truly. So I could see Oda going somewhere along these lines. None. Ooh, none. I say they relate to Odin. He has future sight, as we've seen, and somehow he can see through the bandages. And Odin is known for prophecies similar to Loki's mom. Plus, his mentality is like Loki. His weapon is Mjolnir, so why not make it a trifecta? And with Loki having a high level of observation haki, you could make the comparison to the Nordic god of prophecy, Odin. Okay, so this is saying like no transformation at all. He is simply Odin. Okay, this one says, definitely a Leviathan. I like this one. I think Leviathan is so unique. Well, not unique, right? A lot of fantasy novels and stories have Leviathans already, but we haven't really seen a Leviathan in One Piece. The closest we have is like the Lord of the Coaster Kaido, but I like the Leviathan route. I don't think it's going to be a Leviathan, but I do like that. Do you think he has any relation to Oars? I do not see it yet. Based on how he looks this chapter, brother, Oars, and even Oars Jr. do not have those eyes, right? Loki is the size of Oars, but no, I do not think they're one and the same. Of course, they're both ancient giants, but whatever Loki has, I do not think it relates to Oars, at least not yet. He is Quetzalcoatl, a winged serpent god, seen as a sun god in some depictions. Funny enough, I don't know if you know this, but Quetzalcoatl is actually one of the main theories for dragon as it stands. When people look at dragon, they either say he has wind powers, he's the wind god, the rain god, even the forest god, and then Quetzalcoatl is a very old one. Back when we first met dragon years and years ago, this theory for dragon has been floating around. So I don't think that's bad. I don't think it's Loki, but I do think we could see a Quetzalcoatl in One Piece somewhere down the line. Off of my comment, we have the next comment, the true top comment. I call it that because, obviously I'm put up here because I'm the creator, but, this is the real #1 spot from Wrath. Wraith? It's Wraith. Nah, Wraith. Oda has been in the lab conjuring up new reasons for everyone to like Loki. He might go down as one of the least hated characters in the series. Yeah, I agree. I really like Loki so far. And again, you know, I'm on Twitter, I'm on Instagram. I see all of those cheesy ass reels and comparisons and one-liners, but I eat them up. I love them. The one I saw said, yo, Loki was abandoned by his mom, abandoned by Elbaph, abandoned by his brother, abandoned by Roxy Syvduck, and abandoned by Lola, but he still wants to save Elbaph. And I was like, yo, they kind of cook with that one, man. I don't know. You know, I mean, it's true, right? Despite everything Loki's been through, he hasn't exactly crashed out yet. Like, we know that he apparently killed King Harald and killed the guards, but that's in question, right? Strange hockey came from the castle that day. Loki, despite everything he's been through, might still just be a really good guy. I think he is. Yeah, I mean, even when it comes to destroying Elbaph, like what he talked about earlier, right? When he struck the tree with Ragnir, I don't even think he fully meant it. I think it was just a bluff to get out of the cuffs. I do not think, if he had the choice to, that he would actually tear down the Yggdrasil tree. I don't believe it. I also remember that the Giants said that Loki devoted himself to darkness. I wonder if it's as simple as covering his eyes. That'd be hella propaganda. I mean, granted, I think a lot of things about Loki are hella propaganda, all because of his mom. You know, his mom is over here saying, oh, he's a curse, he's gonna kill his dad one day, he's got the eyes of the devil. Yeah, I think the mom is the one who said this just because she didn't like the way he looked. Loki's mom definitely fell on her own sword when trying to kill her son. Everyone just blamed Loki since he was in the same area and part of her original omen. Yeah, like I said, I don't think Loki actually killed his mom. I don't think Loki had any part to play in the death of his mom. I think she just talked about it so much that people believed it. It's kind of like the boy that cried wolf, if the people believed the boy at the end of the story, right? That's kind of what it feels like. You know, you hear the queen every single day saying, oh, the kid's a curse, he's gonna kill everybody. And then one day if you die while shouting that, people might actually believe you because you're the queen. So I think that is what happened. She spoke it into existence, essentially. Imagine if Mosa is actually Ida. I've seen a lot of these theories popping around. I cannot tell you guys how many times in the past 48 hours that I've seen people saying Mosa is Ida. I don't know. That would be odd. Okay, so thinking about this, right? I don't want to come into this negatively. And the reason I would be negative about this theory in the first place is because it would be so odd if Loki was talking to Hardin's mom the entire time, and Hardin has absolutely hated Loki for all of that same time. Like, that would be crazy. Like, imagine how hard Loki could make fun of Hardin. Like, hey, Hardin, your mom likes me more than you, buddy. I've been talking to your mom this entire time, brother. Like, oh, dude. I think that'd be so cursed. That's the only reason I wouldn't like it. But now, on to why I would like this theory. So, back when Scopper was fighting Luffy and Zoro in the castle, right? When he was testing their strength, we saw a really odd panel. A panel that just stuck with me for a while. And that was when Scopper used his attack, Yaso Takeru, right? The multiple slashes he sent at Luffy and Zoro. When he did that attack, a part of the castle broke off. A part of the castle fell all the way down into the underworld. We had 3 or 4 separate panels of that tower falling down. And if I were to go based off of logic, I would say, oh, you know, the reason why Oda followed that tower is because the minute it drops, that is when Luffy and Zoro gear up to fight Scopper. That's when they get serious, right? Maybe it was like one of those things where 2 characters are fighting and then, I don't know, water hits the ground and they rush off at each other, right? I'm sure you guys all know that trope, right? I thought that is what it could be. But the theory crafter within me said, oh, maybe Mosa was locked in that tower, right? And then that could explain why Loki was talking to Mosa, and Mosa was like, oh yeah, I'm really bored. Maybe it's because they were trapped up there. Like, kind of like Rapunzel, right? Rapunzel was trapped in a tower. Maybe that's the case. And I do think that Ida could fit that. Right, Ida, one, is a woman, and people have said that Mosa does speak with a feminine tone, so that could line up, right? Ida being Mosa. Outside of that, Ida, in this chapter, has displayed pacifism, right? They're not violent. They're the one who changed King Harald. He went from a violent teenager to a benevolent king. And I do think that line of thinking could fit Mosa too, because when Loki is talking to Mosa, Mosa says, oh yeah, like that was a horrible event, blah, blah, blah. And then Loki says, oh, if I was in the room that day, I'd kill everybody. And then Mosa said, ooh, I wouldn't go that far. So yeah, you know, maybe that is another hint that Mosa is Ida, or Ida. I'm not too sure how to pronounce the name, I'm sorry. Ida, you know, nobody's really corrected me yet, so I'm just gonna go with whatever feels right. But yeah, I don't think Mosa being Ida is a bad theory. I just need more. We need to see a traumatic event for me to actually believe this. And this says, Ida could be, oh wow, look at that. 1 Ida is Mosa theory to 2 right off rip. Ida could be Mosa. She holds no ill feeling towards Loki and gets the sense from the dialogue from the spoilers that Ida would be willing to try to bring Loki to the right path as a true mother should. Ooh, I didn't even think about that. That's fire. As a true mother should. The mother that Loki never had. Damn, that's kind of good. That's kind of good. They go on and they say, it was the hearts by your dialogue talking about Hardin's brother. That is all I needed. Okay, yeah, hey, this is a +1. I think this is a +1. Okay, I'm starting to believe it. I'm starting to see the vision. Okay. This one says, now, all we need is a splash of Coke Island, and we can reach the legendary Long Island. Bro, that's such a good wait, this is like a great comment. Dude, that's funny. Yeah, Alcohol Village, you know, Whiskey Peak, Tequila Wolf, Rum Wolf, Bourbon Wolf. Dude, all we need is Coke Island? Combine them, brother. Put them together. I gotta say, between the treatment of the 2 princes, Elbaph is actually looking like a pretty crappy place. Because his mom isn't a native, Hardin is denied his birthright even as the only option in a succession crisis. And from the moment Loki was born, every bad thing is blamed on him just because his crazy mom didn't like his eyes. Here's the thing. You're so right. Because in this chapter, look at the dialogue. The guards, the people who were with the queen when she gave birth to Loki, not a single one of them mentioned his eyes. Nobody else was scared. It was only the queen. The guards were like, whoa, your highness, what are you doing? That's your boy. You know, like they had common sense. The mom, Estrid, is a lunatic, but at least she's hot. If this is how they treat the sons of their favorite king, I'd hate to see how they behave to someone they don't like. You're so right. No, actually, you're cooking with that last one too. Yeah, if this is from their benevolent king, if these are the sons of their benevolent king and that's how they're treated, brother, oh my God. I mean, dude, even Dorian Broggie called Hardin a brat. Like, they do not respect these guys whatsoever, despite being King Harald's only kids. Well, only kids in quotation marks, right? Because the Kaido theory is still looking kind of good. This one says, if you don't think Jormungandr or Nidhogg are his transformations, the answer is Quetzalcoatl. Wow, a lot of people bringing this guy up, huh? He is not a mere serpent, but a winged serpent. Quetzalcoatl. Hopefully I'm pronouncing that right, by the way. I'm just saying Quetzalcoatl. I think I've heard it once from Final Fantasy, and now I'm just kind of rolling with it. Was it Final Fantasy? No, it was Yu-Gi-Oh! Yeah, because that was one of the Earthbound Immortals. Am I right? Let me see. Okay, so I looked up Yu-Gi-Oh! Quetzalcoatl, and I got nothing but fan art, so it is not from Yu-Gi-Oh! It is indeed from Final Fantasy. So yes. Hopefully I'm getting the pronunciation right. So, Quetzalcoatl is also depicted in Skypian ruins and is considered a sun god in some legends, which fits Loki's claim. I like that. Does Quetzalcoatl have crazy eyes? I guess I never really looked at what other mythologies depicted him as. Quetzalcoatl eyes. Okay, so it just has like bird eyes from what I'm looking at. But Oda could do a thing where he 180s it and makes it One Piece-ified. And the Quetzalcoatl in One Piece lore does have those crazy eyes. And also, here's something I want to mention now. You know, going back to like Jormungandr and Nidhogg and Fenrir and etc., and even Quetzalcoatl, I think that Oda could very much make Loki a brand new monster that only exists in One Piece, but whatever he is heavily inspired by these creatures. I forgot to mention it up here, but yeah, if it's not Jormungandr 1-to-1, if it's not Nidhogg or etc., I think it could just be heavily inspired by them, and it could just be like a brand new thing, like, oh, you know, here's this new monster, and Oda gives it like a wacky name, but obviously you look at it, and you're like, oh, that's Quetzalcoatl, that's Jormungandr, that's Nidhogg, blah, blah. I don't think that'd be bad either. Oda has done that before, too, so that would not be super shocking. Loki went from just being completely badass to one of the most interesting characters introduced. He literally survived giant Elbaph beasts as a baby. That's insane. I can't wait to see how this absolute demon moves. Yes. I mean, that is exactly what Luffy said last chapter, right? Luffy looked at Loki and he said, yo, I cannot wait to see this guy fight. I want to see how he does it. And I feel like that's the entire fan base. You know, when it comes to giants fighting, I have always been a hater when it comes to that. Not just in One Piece. You know, take me to like Attack on Titan, take me to MHA, take me to any series with a giant in it. Hell, you could bring in fantasy movies. You know, Clash of the Titans. I don't like giants fighting because typically they just move really slow. Like, yeah, they have power. They got that oomph, but they're always like this. Oh, and then like the characters who are really small are like, oh, let me just run up the arm, you know? I hope that with Loki, Oda kind of breaks that trope, right? We see Loki and he is a speed demon. He's transforming, he's moving, you know, he's boxing little guys like no tomorrow. That is what I hope for. You know, I hope that when Loki fights, size is not an issue. If Loki fights a small person, he's not over here trying to aim and then he always misses because he's too damn big. I hope Loki moves like an absolute beast, brother. And also, since you're talking about Loki having an interesting backstory and stuff, I cannot personally wait for him to meet Lola. I hope they show some Lola in this because I want to see why Lola did not get with Loki. And also, I want to see what Loki saw in Lola. So, to our knowledge, Lola didn't want to marry Loki because it was arranged. At least that is the notion that we kind of left off on, right? Oh, Big Mom scheduled the marriage. Lola didn't like that, so she left. But I do wonder if Lola did like Loki to some extent. Or, you know, this would be really sad, but imagine if Loki did like Lola and Lola liked Loki. So Loki took off his bandages and Lola got scared. Brother, that would break my heart. You know, imagine his mom did not like his eyes. So he confides in Lola. After all these years, he takes off the bandages. He shows Lola what's up. Because get this, in the Lola Big Mom flashback, when Loki's bent over with the rose, his eyes are out and about. You know, obviously it's a silhouette. We have to take that with a big grain of salt. But imagine if Loki did show his eyes to Lola and she got scared. You know, deep down, I'm a lover at heart. I'm a romantic at heart. I hope that Lola did not mind his eyes. Maybe that's why Loki fell for her. Maybe Lola saw his eyes and accepted him for what he was. Or it could be the extreme opposite, where she saw the eyes and she was terrified. Let me know what you guys would like and prefer more. That's kind of crazy, huh? Ida was Jesus Christ. Brother, this is YouTube. Ida was bouncing on that crazy made Harald do a 180. Oh my God. You're not wrong, though. That'll make any man change. This one says, there is a parallel between Charlia, our long sister, and Estrida. Both were fortune tellers. Charlie had a vision of a man in a straw hat who would destroy Fishman Island, while Estrid had a vision that Loki would kill his father and destroy Elbaph. This parallel relates to the Giant's debut in chapter 1136 about the nature of Nika, with some seeing him as a liberator, representing Luffy, and others seeing a destroyer, representing Loki. Despite differing views on Nika's true nature, he will inevitably trigger fateful events for both giants and fishmen. Oda merely mentioning Fishman Island among the first countries Harald established diplomatic relationships with is evidence of this shared fate of giants and fishmen, a fate that will ultimately affect the entire world. This is because when the Great Flood occurs, Fishman Island, 10,000 meters below the sea level, Elbaph on Treasure Tree Atom, Wano, thousands of meters above sea level, and Marie's Raw, 10,000 meters above sea level, will be the safest places on Earth. Yeah. No, I agree. I completely agree with this. And I do think that the Fishman Island mention is very meaningful here, because just like here on Elbaph, Fishman Island had a really crazy birth as well, right? We're looking at Loki, and he is a monster, right? Because of his eyes. But on Fishman Island, they had a similar situation, but with Shirahoshi. Yeah, Shirahoshi didn't have the crazy eyes, but she was a very special birth. She was much larger than any other baby beforehand, right? She was born with the mermaid princess passive, right? She could summon the sea kings. So that is another reason why I think Oda brought in the Fishman Island connection there, to also symbolize Loki's birth. Like, oh, you know, the mermaid princess is born, boom, Loki's born. You know, technically, you know, when you really think about it, yeah, you know, Loki is 63 years old. Divide that by 3. He's like, what, 21? How old is Shirahoshi? Is she also 21? One Piece Shirahoshi age. I don't think she's 21. She's 16. Okay. She is 16 years old. Okay, so they're a little bit off, but close enough, right? Close enough. But yeah, I do think that Loki and Luffy, after this arc, I do think they will possibly travel together. I don't know if Loki's going to join the crew, but I do think they will travel together and they will make these money moves on Fishman Island, on Elbaph, and just around the world. I think they will represent the Liberator and the Destroyer, 100%. And I saw somebody say it a long time ago, and it sounded pretty cool, but they were like, yeah, you know, if you want to liberate something, first you have to destroy it. And I was like, hell, there's the sun god for you, man. This one says, Sigurd, Snake in the Eye, was a son of Ragnar. He was a son from Ragnar's second wife, Aslog. Oh my gosh, I'm not going to pronounce any of this correctly. A woman from Norway, north of Denmark, and became king of Denmark in the 9th century. His eye had a deformity that made his pupil look ringed, or like the Ouroboros. Oh, that's sick. Man, I guess it would be really weird in real life, but I remember growing up, you know, we had like Sasuke with the Sharingan. I wish my eyes were like that, brother. You know, just something cool, like even a different color. Mine are just brown. You know, I got brown Asian eyes. I wish they were a different color at least, man. Come on. I love Oda's use of real history in his characters. I do think the Karmic Serpent could be the Ouroboros since it's death, rebirth, and infinity. Ooh, I like that. Yeah, like I said, when it comes to the Karmic Serpent, that could totally be Oda's spin on so many mythical monsters, right? Nidhogg, Jormungandr, Ouroboros, Quetzalcoatl. Like, you could take all of those guys, combine them, and boom, Karmic Serpent from the Harley text, or Hellfire Serpent, whichever translation you guys are reading. Ida, not being conventionally attractive while having a benign heart in comparison to Estrid, who is drop-dead gorgeous yet is utterly shallow, speaks more about the beauty of the soul rather than the outside. Yeah, I mean, you're not wrong. That is very important, right? You always want somebody who has a great soul. Like, looks are secondary, you know, it's all about the personality. But I gotta ask you guys, you know, I might throw up a poll even, man. I might get kind of crazy. If you had to pick, you know, knowing the personalities, Estrid or Ida, who would you go for? Who would you let do crazy spins on that thing? I gotta know. Well, I don't have to know, but you know, I'm curious. I am 99.99999% sure that we're gonna see Kaido's birth in the next few chapters. Loki's mother was from Alcohol Village, and Kaido's mother was from Vodka Kingdom. The chapter ends with Harald going out. I'm sure next chapter we see him visit the Vodka Kingdom. And damn, look at those AI responses. That's a pretty fun theory. I could see that happening. And this one says, that would be awesome if that happens. And I, the real Sai, agree with the AI version of me. I have been a huge lover of the King Harald Kaido theories. And I brought this up right here because of this, right? I brought up Alcohol Village because of this. Is it a coincidence that Kaido stems from Vodka Kingdom? Is it a coincidence that they look so damn similar? Is it a coincidence that Harald's armor has this weird, you know, dragon fish scale type design and Kaido has fish scale tattoos - dragon tattoos? I don't think so, man. I think there is going to be a connection there. And if we learn that King Harald is actually Kaido's dad, that would be huge for Onis, right? Because Onis are just this weird race that we've just heard of back in Wano. We never touched on ever again, which sounds kind of crazy, right? You know, Wano was like, what, 3-4 years ago? But yeah, maybe we could get the lore of the Onis from this. Like, oh yeah, like if you mix breed, that's how you get Onis. Onis are simply ancient giants mixed with humans, which could even explain Buccaneers to an extent, or other races that are, you know, hybrids as well. But of course, this would mean that Harald would be cheating on Ida and Estrid, which would be kind of crazy. I can't see Harald doing that, so I think this looks rough, but we'll see, right? As much as I would love for this theory to become true, I feel like we'd have to explain Harald's character afterwards. You know, maybe he was pent up, maybe he let one loose in the sea and people went swimming. I'm not too sure, but we'll see. This next comment says, the story of Oedipus bears striking similarities to Loki of Elbaph, a man abandoned as a baby who unknowingly killed his father, married his own mother, and rose to become king of his homeland. Upon discovering the truth, his mother took her own life, and Oedipus blinded himself out of guilt. He was ultimately ashamed and exiled from his own country. I love that story. I remember watching the cartoon version of this as a kid, and I just absolutely loved it. It was so crazy, dude. What do you mean? He bangs his own mom. That's nuts, dude. That's nuts. This one says, I think the owners of this circus will be Buggy's ancestors. Okay, let me actually check. Did the circus people actually have clown noses? I think that would be the main indicator. I'm looking at it right now. No. No, he does not have a clown nose. So I do not think it's Buggy's ancestors. Because we gotta remember, you know, when talking about Buggy and his lineage, Buggy's red nose is real. It's not like a gag where he takes it off or anything. It is a genuine nose. So if we're saying it's Buggy's ancestors, that is the first thing I'm looking for. And that is why, you know, going back to the old school Joy Boy panel we got during the Vegapunk broadcast, the people that were fighting Joy Boy, they had like weird bulbs on their face. So if we're talking about Buggy's ancestors, I think it will be among the Celestial Dragons, believe it or not. That is my crazy theory. This one says, maybe Alcohol Village is where Binks' sake originated from. It's not bad. I like that. You know, not too much to say about that one. It's just like, oh, good catch, good catch. This one says, Loki is the serpent that the giants said they couldn't do any damage to. He is their #1 weakness. So, funny enough, we actually got clarification on this when the chapter released, and we learned something absolutely major, and that is that the blood-soaked serpent that Dory and Bergie were talking about is actually the red line. This one says, I like the theory that Loki is another piece of the puzzle with the gods. Maybe because the giants lived for so long for them, that this is their first time passing down the lineage-bloodline. Oh, that's a good point. In the same way as Poseidon, but they don't live as long. I also think that this might be similar to Luffy, Joy Boy, and the original Nika, as well as perhaps Emus-the Abyss, but in the first world. The death and darkness could have been like the whole world getting enveloped in the abyss and inverting or something wacky. Maybe Joy Boy left a key via the Nika power to flip the world again. I think of the quote, Gold Roger said to Silver about flipping the world upside down. That's a big one. Yeah, that is a big one. Maybe Laughtail will tell us about how the world did get flipped upside down. I wonder if they laughed because Nika did it first using the abyss, but for good. To invert the hell that was the planet set aflame by the Forbidden Sun to one where people have freedom, something like that, I guess. Yes. This line, right, flipping the world upside down, this line has been heavily observed by a lot of theorists, I would say. I feel like whenever people talk about Laughtail, this is huge, right? Between this, Laughtail, and even Roger's dream, flipping the world upside down, I think will be very meaningful. And of course, even going to Emu's Domi Reversi, right? He flips the pieces upside down onto their black or white side. Yeah, I think this is definitely going to come back into play later. I'm hyped to see what's next. Everything is just getting more and more interesting. Thanks for the fast upload, Sai. Of course, man. Appreciate it. This one says, Madame Charlie from Fishman Island also had snakish slit eyes and was able to predict the future, though it wasn't always super clear or obvious as to what was happening in her prediction, and Loki may have a much more intense version of what Charlie had, since they both seem to share similar eyes. Yes, that is right. The funniest thing, though, is that Charlie, you can explain hers because she is like, I forgot, what is her specific fish again? All right, so I looked it up over here, but Man Up Charlie is actually a short fin mako shark. I've never even heard of that one right there. So that explains why she has those vertical slit eyes. But for Loki, you know, he's special because he's a giant with those eyes. But of course, I do see what you mean. You know, I do think that the eyes could give those kind of ocular powers. Maybe he can see the future to an extent. You know, he has shown us future sight, I believe, when he was fighting Gunko, right? He was predicting where she would go. We don't know for sure yet if that's because of his future sight or if that's simply because Gunko obviously has arrows pointing certain directions. I'm pretty split on that one. But I mean, hell, a character like Loki having future sight, yeah. That's not bad. As far as Loki being able to see the future like Charlie, I don't know, like, does Loki strike me as a clairvoyant? I don't think so. And the reason I say that is because Loki so far hasn't said anything about the future, right? He hasn't said anything about, oh, like, Elbaph's outcome will be this, or, ooh, you know, this is gonna happen soon. So I don't think he has the same abilities as Madame Charlie, but I do like the connection, though. I think there will be something there, but I don't think it's gonna be clairvoyance. Extra validity to Mosa being Ida. Look at that. We came full circle, right? We started with the Mosa is Ida theory, and we're ending off with the Mosa is Ida theory too. It's beautiful how that happens. It's like the Ouroboros, man. But with that being said, though, y'all, thank you so much for all the comments. I really freaking appreciate it. Of course, we would not have this video without you guys and your inputs. All right, I just love seeing those theories because I've said this 1,000 times, but it's one thing if I believe something. But at the end of the day, I'm just one guy. You know, that is why I like to read comments. I like to see what everybody's thinking about. And of course, my opinions can change. You know, like the whole Mosa is Ida thing. I didn't see it at first, but the more I thought about it, the better it sounded. I'm not 100% yet, though, right? I'm holding my ground. It's not Harden's mom, but we'll see. You know, if I had to put a percentage to it, I'd say the Mosa Ida theory is definitely the strongest candidate so far, right? Comparative to the Owl, you know, Yarul, and, you know, Morley, Shirahoshi. I do think Ida has the highest percentage, but it's just not at 100 yet. I'm like 70% there. I need one more chapter. Give me one more chapter of Ida, then I'll make like a definite stance on it. With that being said though, y'all, hopefully you enjoyed your time here, and I'll catch you all later. Stay safe, and I'll see you when the next chapter arrives. Peace out. Also, real quick, in this video, make sure to drop your predictions for the next chapter, because I will be going through and doing another bingo prediction video, and I do want to include 1 or 2 predictions from you guys. You know, predictions, again, that I have not thought of personally. So yeah, make sure to drop those down below, and I will take a gander at them later. With that being said, take care, guys.